this is kind of the hometown group, and I appreciate really what you all do for our cities and communities around here. What you do matters far more than what we do, unless we really screw something up, and then it has consequences. But you guys are a great sounding board for all of us. I think all of us at one time or another have come to you with questions to get ideas and input from this organization and its members. So thank you for that. Two things I'll just bring up very quickly that I think were the big accomplishments of the session was one, the Common Core repeal that Representative Crowne talked about. And some people see that as a step backwards. I don't see it as a step backwards. I think it's recognizing the fact that the steps forward that we need to take are actually a lot bigger than what we've anticipated. And the reason I say that, the Fordham Institute is a very Common Core, pro-Common Core organization nationally. They graded all the different states' standards, previous standards, and compared them to Common Core. And I've always believed that our past standards were insufficient and our children deserve better standards. But they determined, the Thomas Fordham Institute determined, that the difference between our old past standards, the priority academic student skills standards, and the Common Core standards were too close to call. So what we did, in effect, with Common Core was outsource the development of our state standards to interests outside the state and really didn't gain anything in exchange. And so it really started to beg the question over several years. Representative Crowne was early on and from the beginning really understood that. Some of us it took a lot longer. What this bill does is set up a process for the first time in Oklahoma to really come up with standards that mean something here. The Common Core standards, if you go talk to Chancellor Glenn Johnson, the head of the Regents, which I have done, there is no document that says Common Core gets our kids ready for college and career in Oklahoma. It's a giant assumption made on the back of a giant experiment about standards. There's a lot of stuff in Common Core, I've read them, that I think are good. There's a lot of stuff in PASS that I think is good. Why can we not take the good out of both of them and go beyond that? Because at the end of the day, college and career ready needs to be determined by the people that are at the colleges, the people that are career tech, the people that hire the kids coming out of high school or educate the kids coming out of high school. We now have a process for the first time ever to accomplish that goal and do it right here in Oklahoma. Higher Ed, the Department of Commerce, Career Tech, the Department of Ed, and the State Board of Education are all formally involved in that process to come up with the new standards. And then there's a requirement that all kinds of other groups that represent different student demographics must also be involved. And I think the State Department of Ed just launched a website yesterday where you can go and actually apply to be a part of this process in a formal way. But even if you don't do that, or you don't get appointed to be a part of the process in a formal way, you need to be engaged. There'll be community meetings, they'll be talking to the business community, they'll be going to the Department of Commerce. You need to get engaged and really make this a successful Oklahoma project so that we don't just have a set of standards that you can't really tell the difference between the new ones and the old ones. These are really superior standards. The second thing really is something that's really close to my heart. It's called the Safe Families Initiative. It's been brought to Oklahoma. It started in Chicago, but it was brought to Oklahoma by a group, Stand for Children, here in the state. And we passed the simple law really to get the state out of the way. It's not a state initiative, but it's a recognition by the state, including the director of DHS, that the state can't do everything to help vulnerable families. So it allows parents that are in crisis, they maybe become homeless, whatever the circumstances, to give power of attorney over their children to a family that's been vetted by this nonprofit organization. And the children will go live for whatever period of time the parent thinks is appropriate until they get back on their feet, without any interference by the state, without having to go in front of a judge. We're not talking about kids that are being abused and neglected. We're talking about families that are in crisis, but they want to do the right thing for their kids. If we don't provide this kind of an option, families just languish in crisis, and then you do end up with a situation where a kid goes into state custody at the end of the day. So it's a great initiative where I think the state is recognizing we need to provide some avenue for help here, but we don't need to be the one providing it. We need to turn it over to the nonprofit or the church community. One of the questions I thought was appropriate that I want to answer before I sit down, it said, what are one of the things that disappointed you that maybe you didn't get accomplished? And I guess it's a play on that, but one of the things that bothered me, and we did successfully kill both of these bills, but it was in this attempt to try to reduce the amount of testing. We were getting ready to make sure that no child had to take a state mandated test for the 14 years in school on civics, geography, or history. And I just think that's a horrible, horrible thing. I don't think we're suffering as a society from this saturation of understanding of geography or of history. I mean, how many of our younger generation who watched the Winter Olympics had any idea what was going on in the opening ceremony with Russia and their history, or where these countries were? How many? So we were able to successfully kill those bills that would have eliminated those tests. Do we test too much? Those tests, students are required to be there for 1,080 hours a year in class. 1,080 hours, that's over 14,000 hours in 14 years. That represents 8 hours of testing. That's 0.02% of all the time a kid will spend in school will be to make sure that they learn something essential like that. So those are the kinds of things that I'm passionate about, I get frustrated about, and I'm excited to serve in the House so that I can address those issues. So I'll say whatever time I've got left for questions. Thank you.